Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second installment of Union Pine Sports Time. My name is Justin Blackburn, voice of Viking football, and I'm here with head coach Matt Quinn.
Thank you for having us here, Justin.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We'd like to thank a couple of people real quick that helped make this broadcast possible. We'd like to thank our producer, Will Herring.
Yeah, Mr. Herring does a great job. He's helping us out, taking care of all the camera work and microphone stuff for us. Obviously, from last week's episode, you saw how well it turned out.
Absolutely. We'd also like to thank Tim Hale from The Pilot.
He comes out and covers us, takes some great shots, some good pictures. Some of the pictures will be featured in today's show, so we just want to give him credit for that and the story that he put in The Pilot for us.
Absolutely. We'd also like to thank Mike Martin. He's with More Sports Radio.
Yeah, Mike Martin come out on Friday night at Midnight Madness and took good care of us, had some good shots, some interviews and things like that will be aired on More Sports Radio.
Awesome. We'd also like to thank Andy McCormick and some ladies that helped serve the guys before Midnight Madness.
Yeah. Principal McCormick took care of our hot dogs. He did 400 hot dogs for our kids. The ladies come out and help serve. Some of the assistant principals, Miss Rodriguez, helped serve.
Awesome.
And some of our parents come and help serve. So we really appreciate those people for doing that for our kids.
We'd also like to thank Timeout Sports Grill for hosting us today. This is our first broadcast from Timeout Sports Grill. So.
Yes, this is our first broadcast from Timeout. They're doing a great job here having us and letting us set up and do things that we need to do and also giving us some pretty good food.
Oh, yeah. Great food down here at Timeout. So, Coach, let's go ahead and jump right in, talk about Midnight Madness. I'd like to thank all the fans that came out. I'd like to give a shout-out to the student section as well for supporting the Midnight Madness, second annual Midnight Madness. Coach, I think this is going to be something that's going to be in Viking football for a long time.
Absolutely. As long as I'm here, we'll do Midnight Madness. You know, I was never expecting that type of turnout and that type of crowd. Our student section come out decked in all black. They made a lot of noise for us. Our fans got into it and got involved. And that was an awesome experience for me as my first time on that game field as a head coach.
There you go. It was, looking at it from the press box and the announcer's booth, gave me chills, man. It was something that was really cool. I didn't experience it last year, but, coming out this year, seeing the fans react to it, seeing the kids react to it out on the football field, Coach, I think it was a great time.
Yes, sir. We had a great time. The kids loved it. Anytime the lights come on, live action happens. It's a lot of fun, and I got to see some great things out of our kids on Friday night.
Let's see. Any initial thoughts on what you saw once the scrimmaging began? I know you guys did a pretty lengthy warm-up, really cool warm-up. I like the formation that you had out on the field. And did a pit drill at the beginning of it. Is that what it was called?
Yes, we started off with a pit drill. As soon as that clock hit 0 and it was midnight and we could actually hit, we started off with a pit drill with two offensive linemen, two defensive linemen, a receiver versus a linebacker or a receiver versus a DB, and a running back running through there trying to get into the end zone. And that was really the first live action that I've got to see out of our kids since I got here in March. And there was some great effort, some great intensity in that period with the pit station down there on the goal line.
Awesome. And so we've got a segment here where we're going to show some highlights. Coach, you ready to get to the highlights?
Let's show the highlights.
All right. So after taking a look at the highlights, Coach, we're going to talk on JV players just for a second. Are there any JV players that stood out to you or surprised you?
Yeah, we had a few guys that really stood out and surprised me. Played very well on Friday night. First was our quarterback, Ethan McKay. Young kid, freshman, coming into the program, learning a new system, threw the ball very well, and can run with his legs and do a good job reading the zone for us. So I was very impressed with Ethan McKay. Next, we'll talk about J.J. McCain. J.J. is a kid that, you look at the roster and you're like, what position does this kid play? Mm-hmm. He plays everywhere, Justin.
Everywhere.
He was on the defensive line. He was at running back. He was at receiver. He does everything for us. And he had a couple of tackles for loss, had a fumble recovery, caught a touchdown, caught another long 40-yard gain. He just does everything, and the intensity that he brought. And he told me before the game started, he said, "Coach, they're going to feel me."
Yeah,
and, he did a great job, and he made everybody realize who JJ was.
Cool, man.
The third JV player that I'll talk about is Archie Chandler.
Mm-hmm.
Archie Chandler was our main running back featured on that JV offense. Archie did a great job running the football. His second year in the program. So he's kind of got a feel for a little bit of action, but on Friday night he did a great job for that JV team.
Awesome. Very cool, Coach. Really good to hear. I was going to say, it sounds like you got a real utility player in JJ.
Yes, JJ is a utility player, comes to us from Cranes Creek.
Cranes Creek. Very nice. Shout out to the coaches at Cranes Creek. So next we'll talk on the varsity players, and I believe – what was the very first play of the game? The next kid you're going to talk about, he took it, 85, 90 yards almost for a touchdown?
85 yards on the first play of the game.
Crazy, man.
Justin Eberhardt is a very, very special running back.
Yeah.
I knew he was pretty good through workouts and through 7-on-7s and things like that. But when we get to live action, Justin is just so hard to tackle. He sees it very well. He reads the cutback lanes very well, and he does everything that we ask of him. When he gets the ball in his hands, he's just tough to tackle. One of the biggest surprises for us varsity-wise, and I told Kawan Kelly that he needed to prove himself at defensive back. And Kawan Kelly had probably the biggest hit of the night. He played defensive back very well. He's a very intense player and gets after it. One of our receivers, senior receivers that had a pretty good night, Robert Garza. He plays slot receiver for us. He caught a couple of good balls there and had a touchdown catch as well. Brandon DeLoach, Mr. Reliable, out there at receiver for us. He does everything that we ask. He's in the right spot at the right times. He blocks his tail off on run plays, and he makes things open up for the run game, so that in turn makes him a very, very good receiver. A young kid that we'll talk about, Jacob Bobliss, brother of Ben Bobliss, quarterback here last year. Jacob caught a touchdown, caught another ball for a pretty good gain. We're looking at Jacob to be a very, very heavy contributor, and Jacob is actually going to be wearing Ben's number 5, so it's not going to be a change for the Bobliss family.
There you go. Awesome.
Noah Klotz, defensive back, had our interception for us. We had some miscommunication on offense, but nevertheless, he was in the right spot at the right time and made the catch and got some yards after that interception. Linebacker Kamal Fairley, we talked about him last week. He's always in the right spot at the right time. He makes plays. He's cutting the making the ball cut back or hitting the lanes and making tackles when he needs to, and he's always where he's supposed to be. The last varsity player I was really impressed with and happy to see block live now is Andrew Butner. We talked about him as well last week. He's a senior. Started here since he was a freshman, and seeing him in that very first pit drill at midnight, push his way into the end zone and lead Justin Eberhardt in the first contact drill of the season was awesome. Yeah,
absolutely, Coach. So we talked about players, both JV and varsity, and now what we want to do is we want to talk kind of about your coaching staff. With being a new head coach and coming in and kind of adopting this coaching staff that we've had at Union Ponds for a good while now. Were there any coaches that stuck out to you? Like their style and their way of coaching?
Yes, the first coach, Greg Mayer. Greg Mayer is our offensive line coach and run game coordinator. He motivates his guys. He gets them in the right spot up front. And those big boys up front, I mean, Justin had 6 carries for over 100 yards. He touched the ball 6 times.
That's crazy.
He touched the ball 6 times and had over 100 yards. Well, everybody's talking about Justin, but those 5 boys up front made some pretty good running lanes for him. So
absolutely.
Coach Mayer gets some credit for that because he motivates those guys, gets them in the right spot, like I said. Another coach I want to talk about that just brings pure intensity to every day that we have. Coach Thomas, Dylan Thomas.
Yes.
He's our linebackers
Yep.
coach, and he helps that anchor the defense with Green and Fairley that we talked about.
Yep.
And he's just intense at all times, and I love the way he coaches, and I love the way he reacts. And then the third coach that I would like to mention is Scott Cadell.
Yeah.
Scott Cadell works with our JV team. He called the JV plays on Friday night and did a great job with that JV offense. They got a long way to go. They got some mistakes to clean up, just like we do on varsity.
Yeah.
But Scott did a great job calling for that JV offense.
Well, Coach, it sounds like, you've got a lot of support, from your coaching staff. I've got to know Coach Mayer after working with him for a couple of years now. Great guy, really awesome guy, and definitely 100% fired up about football, anything football. And I got to know Dylan as well. Coach Cadell, don't know him very well, but I'm glad to hear that he's going to be a rock solid person for your JV
Absolutely,
team.
yes.
Getting those younger kids, build into the program, and by the time they get to varsity, they'll be ready to rock and roll.
Yes.
Awesome, very nice, Coach. So we've got some scrimmages coming up this week. The first one that I see on the list, we're going to be Wednesday at Cape Fear, and this will be against Douglas Byrd High School.
Yes, there's a jamboree at Cape Fear High School. We'll be facing off against a pretty familiar opponent in Douglas Byrd, a conference opponent last year, but with the realignment, they're not in our conference anymore, so we'll play them at Cape Fear on Wednesday.
Yeah, I've been familiar with Douglas Byrd, played sports back at Union Pines. And baseball, seeing them play football and stuff, very familiar opponent. And I think our kids that have been in the program for a while, they'll know what to expect.
Yes.
And so that'll be a good scrimmage for you.
Yes,
Really good time out. So Friday we're at Northwood, and this looks like another jamboree as well.
It is. It's a jamboree at Northwood. We'll face 3 or 4 different opponents for about 20 minutes each.
Yeah.
Get some good work against various teams there at Northwood.
And so I'm assuming that's probably a lot of schools out of conference.
Yes, everybody that we're playing in our jamborees are not in our conference schedule, not on our schedule.
Okay.
We don't want to play against teams that we're going to see in the regular season.
Absolutely.
So we set it up that way so we don't have to play anybody
All
we'll see later.
non-conference scrimmages.
Yes.
Cool. Very nice. And like you said, it'll get your boys to see different patterns, different play sets, and get them kind of ready for anything, right?
Yes, that's the plan with these scrimmages, these jamborees, is to let our kids see other opponents. Midnight Madness was great. The kids fought hard, but it's a little bit different when you play against somebody in an opposite color jersey that's not your friends.
That's right.
And that experience for them will be good leading up to our first game on August 18th.
August 18th. And the opponent for August 18th, Coach, I believe
East Montgomery.
East Montgomery. Awesome. So we'd like to throw out here toward the end of the broadcast, we've got the VIP tent that's been bidded on.
Yes.
You know what the bid's up to now, Coach?
The first game, we have some bids on other games, but the first game high bid is still at $150.
Still at $150.
Split it with 10 people. Take 10 of your friends, split it up.
Yep.
You're going to get your ticket, you're going to get food and your drinks, which if you do the math and add it up, you're a math guy, Justin.
Oh yeah.
You're going to spend more money than that.
That's right.
If you go to the game and just go to the concession stand. So
oh, yeah.
We would like to invite you all to bid on the website on the Buffalo Wild Wings VIP tent.
Buffalo Wild Wings VIP tent. You get to sit right behind the end zone, watch these Viking players come out of the tunnel. You'll be there the whole game. They've got sodas. They've got seats.
Yes.
Really awesome experience.
You'll have everything you need right there on the field.
Everything you need right there on the field. So as we bring this second broadcast to a close, Coach, I'd like to thank Time Out Sports Grill once again for having us. We've got a nice little setup here. I think this is going to be a really good place to keep this broadcast going for us.
Yes, Time Out in Carthage has done a good job of supporting our program and supporting this show. So we would like to definitely thank them for helping us out here.
Yep. Once again, as always, we'd like to thank our administration at Union Pines High School. I'd like to give a shout out to Andy McCormick and our assistant principals, everyone who makes this possible. Yes. Coach, it's awesome that you've got an administrative staff that buys into the sports programs and pretty much everything that's Union Pines. It's just awesome. The family, the camaraderie, the community that we have here is just really awesome. Anything else you'd like to say, Coach?
Everything's coming together for this school and this program.
Yeah.
You saw the turnout Friday night. One thing I would like to reiterate and mention is that student section. Man, the student section was awesome. They were probably 40 or 50 deep in the student section.
Oh, yeah.
And we would love to have the student section at every one of our games, making noise, being rowdy, because that really motivates our kids and helps us out.
Absolutely. And once again, we'd like to give a shout out to you, our fans, and the community as well that watch these broadcasts, make it possible for us to sit here and talk football for a little bit, Coach.
Yes.
Thanks again for coming out to the Midnight Madness. Like as you mentioned before, a wonderful turnout. I mean, 3/4 of the stands,
Yes.
if not more, slam full at a midnight. It's just incredible. I'm excited to see what we've got coming up this season. So once again, shout out to Timeout Sports Grill. We'll catch you next broadcast. Thank you.